Find a convenient spot. So, yeah, why don't we move on while we're dealing with printing here? We're printing the desk item. So we can move to our
With the oral communications.
oral communication. Aha, perfect timing possibly. If there are some, we might have a person who wants to wrote you
First,
want.
I have a question. Are we allowed to comment on, number 2?
When we get to that item, yeah.
Okay, we can comment on it.
Yes, of course.
Good. Okay, thank you. Yes, so happy last meeting of the year. We'll try and, yes, so I was wondering a couple of things. When we did, the refinance back in 2020, and I brought this up several times, the council was told there's not an increase in interest rate. That's what they were told. The fact might have been different, but that's what they were told. It was not retracted or anything. And at the time, there was no like truth in lending statement saying that, well, if you don't do anything, this is how much you're going to pay. And if you do refi, this is going to be, the refi was actually partially refi and cash out. Or if you cash out completely, what you pay, but not pay it, whatever. And so that was not really disclosed. And I really want to kind of understand the full disclosure on that. And at the same time, at that moment in time, the city of Cupertino, the Public Facilities Corporation, which oversees the debt, had lost its
Tax exempt.
tax exemption status. And, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, the contractor who did this, consultant who did this, seems to me didn't do their due diligence in making sure that all the i's were dotted and t's crossed. And, you know, nevertheless went ahead and did this, move forward with this refinance, and we paid them to do that job. And I would like to know, what have we paid to get us out of that snafu? And I understand that there's still some loose ends to tighten up, and whether there are any tax exemptions.
I understand your concerns.
Remaining.
What actually the best appropriate time that you could have had that was actually at the Public Facilities Corporation meeting last week.
Yeah, I
This
just,
body does not have oversight with with regards to the Public Facilities Corporation and how it refinanced it.
okay, well, I'm just gonna sit here and whistle then, even though you've had no oversight, but,
I'm just,
yeah, I actually did write in comments, and, as usual, my comments were dismissed, so, and then, and so, you know, and then, okay, so, and then getting to the refi, at the time of the refi was in October, coming off of June, to do so, it was, the refi happened in October, and at the time, the sales tax revenue was announced for that time frame. And I did submit this to the Public Facilities Corporation, did not get a response yet. And then all of a sudden, the sales tax revenue, like around January, all of a sudden jumped by like $10 million. And so when the paperwork was submitted, it was submitted for one number, then it was submitted for yet a different number. How could the sales tax revenue report have changed so much from, you know, the end of June to, you know, October, November timeframe, when at the time that refi occurred? And I wound up doing sort of reverse engineering and finding that, and found that, I looked at the amount of money that CDTFA paid to Cupertino, and then looked at how much Cupertino was rebating to the two entities. And the first number seemed to check out, but not the second. And I've been asking this question for a long time. And so I'm asking again, and I will stop here.
Okay, thank you for that comment. City staff have anything?
Since this is public comment, I think we're limited, and Jonathan did say, when that other comment might be most appropriate.
Okay. I do know that, just as chair speaking here, that there is some commentary in the ACPR, so, on that issue in terms of the interest rate, which I think it may not address fully, but there is some comment in the ACPR on interest. All right, what I'd also like to do, let's see, where are we? Oh, perfect. We just went to oral communications. Why don't we go back to the minutes that we were, since we've now got a hard copy, and spend just 2 minutes, or Hanyan maybe is the main one to read it. And then we'll jump into 2. So we've covered oral communications. We're going to go back to our minutes approval, and then we will go right back to 2. We'll get in order here in a minute.
I see. So most of these were related to our feedback to US Bank, right?
That's right.
Clarification that goes to me. So all right, any questions? Why don't we have a motion on the minutes?
I suppose.
Is there a second?
Second that.
We're seconded. All right, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Minutes as adjusted are approved. All right. So now to the new business, agenda item number 2, which is to an action item receiving the fiscal year 2023-24 ACFR. And make sure, yeah, I announced it. Over to Jonathan to lead us through the item from a staff perspective, please.
I'll just say a couple quick before passing it on to the plan group, who will be presenting on their procedures and their findings. The short is we had a unmodified or clean opinion this year, just like last year. And this is, but before going too much into that, I just want to thank both finance staff and the plan group for putting in the additional work needed to meet a November ACFR deadline. So it took countless hours on both parts, and I think a lot of this was also built on starting the ACFR earlier. We started about 2 months earlier, and it being our second year with the plan group, we kind of identified what they are looking for so that we can preempt that those conversations, or providing the information they're looking for rather than this constant back and forth. And so it kind of comes natural with your second year. We also look for other efficiencies and more direct line communication between us and some of their staff. So we, with that, we were able to meet a almost 8-month earlier submittal for the ACFR presentation to the audit committee. And so again, clean opinion. There was no new GASB pronouncements this year. Like last year, we had 96. We didn't have any prior period adjustments. So overall, it was just a much easier report to compile. There were a couple, as you'll see, if you compare this report to last year, we built in some cleaning up of our management discussion and analysis. So it's a bit more streamlined, easier to read. And with next year, we'll be looking for more refinements, but it just takes some time to put in those adjustments. And with that, I'll pass it on to the plan group. We'll present on their processes.
Thanks, John. Look, just before Sophia, maybe this is the earliest I've encountered it in many, many years. So something changed. And obviously, you guys must have worked a lot more from when did we look at the last one? July, I think. So here we are 4 months later. I've seen enough ACFRs for 1 year, I guess, personally. But yeah, I imagine some hours were burned, and Sophia chime in, or Mark too. I mean, how did this how did you get to November? And I hope we can do it again next year by December or whatever, but.
Hi, thank you. And then thank you for having us here again. We just met a couple weeks ago. And then just to answer your question, like Jonathan mentioned, that we did start earlier this year. Last year, it was really just because of the contract awarded a little bit later in the game. And then so we started the planning and then also communication with the city's management earlier. So we really started the audit 2 months earlier. And also we set up the status meeting starting from early September on a weekly basis, which helps a lot because we can we could talk about the audit open items, so there were no miscommunication, no misunderstanding between different parties. And then, like Jonathan also mentioned, he has direct access to us from time to time, so a lot of questions could be answered really quickly. So it does help, and of course, I mean, both parties put a lot of extra hours in. I think from just from the product and then also the timing that I'm not hiding anything, so we did put a lot of extra hours in as well. And so that's and a lot of help from the city's finance management and also the staff that really help us to pull the supporting document. And then also there's additional item that added on is that we have access to the city's financial system, which we fully evaluate whether we can protect the city's information or not. So before we had access on, and that also help us to streamline the process a little bit more.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I did have a presentation slide prepared. I don't know how much time do I have for today. So I don't know if you guys mind if I can share the screen so that I can talk about the audit process and our responsibilities, and then the management responsibility, and the last one will be our audit result. So if you guys don't mind, and then we have I have enough time, I will can I share my screen?
Yeah, this is a major item, so we'll make time, but I'm sure we have time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, thank you for having us today. What I will let me do the slideshow from beginning. So again, this is for fiscal year ended June 30, 2024 financial statement audit for the city of Cupertino. And as required by the professional standard AUC section 260, we are required to communicate those who is charged with governance. And here we determine the board members and also city council members are those charged with governance. So this is why we are here to do the presentation. And what I will go through today includes the engagement team and audit approach. So this will be a summary of our audit process that can give you some idea what we did throughout the year. And again, the required communications. And last would be the audit result. So here is our service team. So myself and along with me here is Mark, who is our assurance service manager that we put on this year. And we also have our QC director, Ross Gofter, and he also help us on the back end. So I back him all the time to speed up this process and help us to really to push out the report timely. So he did provide a lot of help behind the scene as well. And this slide summarizes our audit approach. So it's pretty standardized. Our audit approach divided into 6 phases. The first phase is the engagement, acceptance, and the general planning, which this year we started in late May. During this phase, we review our prior year work papers and we perform our independence check. And we also discuss with the management to determine if any significant transaction entered during the year that we should be paying attention to. And during this phase, we also determine whether any new GASB pronouncements that will impact the city's financial statement. Luckily, this year, there was no significant GASB pronouncements that impact the city's financial statement. It also helped us to streamline the process a little bit better. And then we move on to the phase 2, which is the internal control evaluation phase, which we also know as the interim field work. During this phase, we obtain an understanding and update our previous understanding over the significant transaction cycles, which including the financial reporting process, manual journal entry process, revenue collection, expenditure process, and also procurement, and also payroll processing as well. And we did perform walkthroughs and then perform tests of control based on our risk assessment. And during this phase, we also do the preliminary analytical procedure to determine if any significant areas that need to be tested during year-end field work. Then we move on to our year-end fieldwork, which we started in mid-September this year. So during this phase, we did substantive testing and also analytical procedure. We also send out confirmations to confirm balances. And also we send out legal letters during this phase as well. And then we move on to the post-field work, which is the timeframe that we clean up all the audit open items, and we continue reviewing the minutes to determine if any commitment or contingencies to be performed. We also evaluate whether any events will trigger the city's going concern. And then we move on to the report presentation, preparation, and the review phase. So again, we actually did the post-field work and the report preparation simultaneously so that we really streamline process and then shorten the time frame. So during this time frame, we prepare the financial statement to make sure that the financial statement numbers agree to the city's trial balance, and we put note disclosures together, making sure that we also use the GFOA checklist to make sure that all the required disclosures are properly reflected in the financial statements. And we also went through our QC review to make sure all the QC review comments are addressed. Then we move on to the final production, which is the phase we are having right now. So this is the timing we present to the audit committee, and then we will and to determine if any comments or questions need to be addressed. And then we will also be getting the signed management representation letter, and also we requested legal updates to make sure that we are satisfied with all the audit evidence collected during the audit process. So now I will move on to the required communications. So throughout the audit process, management also has some responsibilities. So management are responsible for preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle accepted in the United States, which is known as GAAP. And management is also responsible for designing and implementation and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation of financial statements to prevent from material misstatements, whether either due to fraud or errors. And also, the management is also required to evaluate whether any conditions or events that will trigger any substantially doubt us about the city to continue as a going concern for 12 months beyond the financial statement date. And as an auditors, we are responsible to form and express opinion whether the financial statements that have been prepared by the management with your oversight are presented fairly in all material respect in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. And we are also responsible for plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance about whether the financial statement are free from material misstatements. The reason for that is it's not possible for us to do 100% testing. We do risk assessment, we do sampling, so only reasonable assurance can be obtained. We are also required to consider the internal control over financial reporting. However, such consideration were solely for our planning purpose. And that's why we did not issue opinions on the internal control over financial reporting. And we are also required to conclude whether there are any conditions or events that will raise substantially doubt about the city's ability to continue as a going concern. Last, again, we are required to communicate with those charged with governance. So that's why we are here today. And there are additional required communication that to be communicated at the conclusion phase. So throughout the whole entire audit process, we comply all the relevant ethical requirements regarding independence. The independence, including independence in mind and also independence in appearance, which especially related to the non-audit services that we provided to the city, that mainly related to drafting all the financial statements for the city based on the information provided. So throughout the process, we stay independent from the city. And the city also disclosed all the significant accounting policies in the note 1 to the financial statement, which is really important because the note about the significant accounting policies really dictate how the city prepares the financial statement. So that's why we highly recommend the reader to read through that. And in accordance with US GAAP, the management is also required to make significant estimates in preparing the financial statements. So the significant estimates that we identify are including investment reported at fair market value and also depreciation and amortization on the capital assets. This also includes the net pension liability and the net other post-employment benefits asset, which are purely estimated based on actuary studies. So those are significant estimates made by the management. And there are a lot of sensitive disclosures in the notes that we do highly recommend the reader to read, which include a note 1. Again, that's the summary of significant accounting policies, which is really how dictates how the city prepares for financial statements. Note 4, lease receivables and lease related deferred inflow of resources, which came from GASB 87 leases accounting implementation. Note 8, defined benefit pension plan. Note 9, OPEB, other post-employment benefits. Note 10, liabilities under self-insurance and risk management. Note 11, net position and fund balances classification. Note 12, commitments and contingencies. Note 13, concentration risk. Note 14, stewardship, compliance, and accountability. And Note 15, subsequent event. And we are happy to say there were no material incorrect misstatements throughout the audit that we noted. And from time to time, the management might seek different opinions from other accountants or consultants. To the best of our knowledge, the management informed us there were no such consultation regarding auditing and other matters. And we encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with the management throughout the audit. We did not have any disagreement with management in terms of accounting treatment, no audit procedures performed. This what brings me to the financial audit results that we will be issuing. Like Jonathan mentioned, we will be issuing a modified opinion on the financial statement, which is the best opinion that the CPA firm can render. That is also known as a clean opinion. That means the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. Significant accounting policies have been consistently applied. All the estimates are reasonable. Disclosures are properly reflected in the financial statements. And again, there were no disagreement with the management, no material weaknesses, internal control of financial reporting were reported, no other accounting issues noted. This will conclude the presentation for today. I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Good. I know, Sheila, you were about to ask one. Maybe you can start
Yeah,
us
no.
off. Are you
I
okay?
think that time has passed.
Did you get it? Okay. Yeah, I think there's been some minor changes, but just procedure wise, maybe Jonathan, I can kick off a question and Holly may have one as well. But I think we got the draft that we received, which I think was one day later than what might have been on the website. So is the plan to finalize for after these minor editing things are complete?
Certainly, there was a few, I'm sorry, is there?
Oh, yeah, that was, what's the progress here? Once we have our meeting, assuming we accept it, what's the progress of the report?
So we'll make those few grammatical changes. They're minor, they're wordsmithing, I suppose. There's one other change that we noticed today, and it had to deal with restricted funds within the general fund. It's $5,000 in one restricted fund and about 20 in another. That's just going to be adjusted. It's nothing material in the scheme of things. But I disclose that as well. And Sophia, correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys accept the report, I believe our management representation letter has been completed. And with any additional changes that you may have, they'll consider that, and we'll turn this around for tomorrow and have it ready for the city council meeting for next week.
Great, so it gets into December business or wherever, November, we're still in November.
December 3rd.
Yeah, my comments are, again, I think the MD&A section, one of the ones I go to right away, I appreciated the, enhanced version of it. To me, it was more readable than I've seen in prior years. So I'm sure the team, both of you, all of you had to collaborate, but my personal thanks for making it more readable. Anya,
Yeah,
I give you a chance.
I was just thinking, you know, the team has done a great job or along with our auditor to kind of pull forward the timeline to get this published. What are some of the implication in terms of like, hey, we have this visibility or we have this like out sooner? What are the kind of the budgeting and planning perspective? Like, you know, how does that impact our operations at all? Like to have this sooner? And like, what about from like a risk mitigation perspective? Oh, we have this out, so it's like, hey, it's out in the open versus it's delayed by a year, then it's anything we uncover later, it's what are some of those kind of downstream? Like, is there anything that we can kind of change as a ripple effect to the timeline being moved forward?
If anything, this makes it's timely in that.
Yeah.
This is the time, we're right around the time we want to be completing the act work, because it feeds into other aspects with the finance. One being like our Q1 report, which kind of summarizes what happened last year in more detail, more on the divisional level, right, our department level. So with that, and it kind of ties out our year end. And so you don't want this hanging out there for too long, because it also, what it does, until this is closed, there could be subsequent events that you may just have to disclose. Not to say that it's not important to put in there, but it is the responsibility of the auditors to include that additional information in the AFR that is still outstanding. Correct, Sophia?
Yes, Jonathan, you are correct. So the sooner, of course, if any subsequent events are required to be disclosed, we always disclose. And then if we finish audit earlier, that then we conclude. It helps in the long-term planning as well, and therefore it also helps the cities on budget perspective as well. And also there is a due date from GFOA award as well.
So, and it feeds into our budget. So if we're constantly having to revise or if we're delaying our AFR, it will play an effect into our budget, or if we're pulling from operational advice. Staff that would typically be more focused on your budget, and I'm having to pull them to finish up the AFR, then your staff is starting to play double duty. Not to say that they weren't doing that this time around, but it's a bit draining on the department the longer the AFR is outstanding.
And I think there are some legal requirements for it to be timely, so it was not timely the last one we looked at, but part of your question is what are the benefits? The benefits are it's timely. I would, and what are the time requirements? Again, you got another 3 months or so, 9 months after your fiscal year end?
Typically, you want to complete it within 6 months, as well as
Yeah.
fiscal year, so that you would be able to submit to GFOA a certificate of excellence, as well as there are some legal requirements for our debt covenants. Ideally, I believe they want it by January or February. Don't quote me on that. Thank you. Even later, but ideally, you want to get it sooner. So you can start submitting that. From my understanding, there's at the federal level, they do also like to see that.
Good. Any other questions from the committee members? Phil.
The last time it was delayed, other than the fact that one group was new, we also had some delay in getting information from the county on something, remember? Either they needed to get that first before.
Oh, like prior to this year, you mean? Sorry, yes, sorry. So prior to this year, we had different auditors. We had Crow, and Crow would want to wait for the final financial reports from PARS before issuing ours. So under our previous auditor, we would have likely never made December deadline because they needed to wait for the.
And so that was the auditor's requirement?
That was for, yeah, our previous auditors. That was a.
Have that problem.
And any other auditor I've worked with, that wasn't a requirement. The same for the Pine Group, that they don't require PARS's financial audit financial statements to be completed. before we issue our own.
And so you would base it on what?
Statements, largely an actuary report.
Could that change?
I don't think the Pine Group would change it on their end if, we're hoping to, we have a 5-year contract with, I believe, 1-year extensions. So within the next 5 years, I don't see that being, unless there's a GASB pronouncement, and usually those take a couple of years to implement. So from my perspective, I don't think that's gonna be changing anytime soon.
And if it did, it'd be a widespread change, so everybody.
No, but it's been great, and I commend you, Pun Group, as well as you finance staff for getting it done in such a timely fashion.
Great. Why don't I invite public comments? I think one member already said she wanted to, so Rhoda?
Yeah, really happy to see this get done timely. Many years we have actually missed that March 30 date, which is stipulated by the certificates of participation. So that's where that date comes. Maybe there's some other dates too, but the March 30 is by the certificates of participation. One of the things to be about back last year was that the ACFR was submitted prior to the council and the Public Facilities Corporation approving it. It was not marked draft. It was submitted without any approvals whatsoever. And then later on, it was submitted again. And also in the past, we've also had resubmittals too. So very encouraged by this. One of the things that I've just quick scanner at this while we were here, since I was napping this afternoon instead. It seems like the administration and administrative services fees are just seem to be a runaway. On page 15, it talks about having saved nearly $5 million in the refi of the debt. However, at that time, we had also done we had bought the debt down, and it's not specific about the interest rate. So I'm still sort of stumbling about that. I don't see any mention of the enterprise funds. Again, took a quick look. My understanding is we have golf and sports center on enterprise funds, senior center, and pool and picnics had enterprise funds in the past, but they don't now. So that was another concern I had. Also, this 2020 sales tax revenue still does not reconcile from what I can see of having, reconciled with CPTFA and the rebates from the city. I'm wondering whether the potential loss of the tax exempt status is a reportable event. Lastly, there was another one. Yes, there was a mention of tax income. Now, it was referred to as franchise tax in the report. And when I think about franchise, I think about garbage. And so we have a garbage contract, and it's my understanding is it's a fee, it's not a tax. We have franchise fees for the garbage company, and fees are very different from taxes because taxes have to be voted on and fees are not. And we actually have to show that we're using those fees properly because they're fees, they're not taxes. So I'm just wondering whether there needs to be any granularity in there to spell out the difference between, but whether we have a franchise fee or a franchise tax. That's it.
Thanks, Rhoda, for your comments, public comments. Now, since this is a major action item, I'd like to take invite a motion to approve it and forward to the next stage in the process, I guess, City Council. Is there a motion?
Sure, I will make a motion to approve the minutes of, to approve
Item
the
2.
item.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, so now we can, I think the motion is clearly understood. Any more discussion while we're on this motion? I think one comment I can make that we haven't yet in our points that have been touched on here is the transmittal letter provides almost as much information in some ways on a high level as the MD&A does. So it's I guess is that moving more toward what industry standards are, that there's what's the difference between a transmittal letter, for example, and an MD&A?
In short, the transmittal letter is more summative, less financial data. Not to say it can't be financial data, it's more looking forward, how did the city do overall as a city? Whereas the NDNA kind of dives deep more into the is a summary of the financials. It's like an executive summary of the financials.
Okay, thanks. That helps. I know in the past, it's been used to communicate high-level issues when there's something special that's occurred, the transmittal letter. So a unique event, I guess, in a particular year.
Is this something that I think thanks for bringing this up. Is this something that we could actually kind of, along with sharing the overall report that has hundreds of pages, like kind of highlighting, hey, here are the key things that, for even this committee ourselves, and also the member of the public to kind of, hey, here are the key takeaways, like pay attention over here, like these are the things that we want to highlight.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Exactly what the NDNA and the transmittal, if there was one piece of the ACFR that you would want to read and not necessarily dive too much, it would be the transmittal letter in the ACFR. It essentially summarizes how the city is doing both as a city and then financially. And so there's certain sections we're looking to expand in out years and refine it. And so with time, staff is looking to add different components and refine those added portions, whether it's including like a bit on future budgets, like for the next audit, I'm thinking possibly including how did our budget come out and what was our key initiatives that we want to highlight. And so that's what we're looking for in transmittal letter, whereas the MD&A is just going to essentially, again, summarize how did the city do in a particular year. And so it'll call attention to those items like in this case, the CDTFA audit. It did touch on, although we have committed those funds sometime in October, we uncommitted those funds. So it kind of gives you an idea as to what's going on financially and whether you should maybe tune in to the city council meetings or what's going on with this, or to go to our Q1 report, which is also another summary of what happened in the previous year.
Hanyan's follow up on my comment triggers some more thoughts on my part, in the sense that maybe for the committee itself, there's something that you might be also alluding to, is maybe we could have some guidance, as all of us come with different backgrounds and there's members of the public. And I know we should I did read the ACFR, but it's a complex document with so much material that some of the stuff you're saying, like tune into the city council meeting this date, for now that everything's recorded, maybe some thought can be given to how can we streamline the efficiency of our committee. Not so much the ACFR maybe, but it does help the whole process of each of us can now ask more intelligent questions or be more responsive to issues or something. And that probably comes from some executive summary of the executive summaries that are already in the ACFR. I don't know if that's possible, if you've seen it at other cities, or even it's worth the effort, but I'm thinking of some executive summary that's really reduced, streamlined, maybe in consultation with Pun Group, who sees a lot of these kinds of committees, no doubt, in your travels, and you encounter similar questions. I'm not sure every year we need to go through, for example, Sophia, it was a very good summary of what you guys do as independent accountants, but it might be that if we could focus some of our committee thought on other issues that are more localized, now that we know, maybe every other year you can do that summary, and next year we can look at maybe something that's more localized. Just a thought.
I think it may be what you're looking for is probably a staff report. I wouldn't necessarily modify the report much.
Yeah.
Maybe the staff report that will accompany. This year was a little difficult just meeting this deadline.
Yeah.
And as we build those efficiencies, maybe
Right.
next year we'll create a staff report that hits those highlights, that what you're looking for, so that
Maybe
you
just some like a few PowerPoint slides,
certainly.
sort of highlight.
Yep. I think that's exact. Yeah, it sounds like a staff report that would tailor this. All right, why don't we pick
I think maybe just one more
Yeah.
point. I think I know we're gonna talk about the FY 25, the 2025 work plan.
Yeah.
I think I just, in the Crest dinner, I had a chat with some of the other kind of folks on other commissions and committees. One of the things that they mentioned is like, oh, before we have the meeting, like November 21st, like, can our committee kind of decide or just go and kind of give feedback on what goes on the agenda in upcoming, right? Like I know it's in the work plan, but can we go look at the work plan and be like, hey, can we have a more focused discussion at upcoming meeting instead of having mostly like information items? Let's talk about like, like the meaty ones, the most important ones. How like just thinking about kind of looking forward to 2025.
I think some of that should come about when we're figuring out, I'm not objecting to what you're saying, but there's the Brown Act, first of all, that gets us into. So if we are meeting as a committee, we've got to put notice to the public. It's like another meeting. It's a special meeting then. So individually, you can do some things that we can't as a committee. But I think as a group, there's a section in each of the agendas usually to suggest items for the future. And you can also reach out to me or Jonathan as the liaison, and we can get items onto the agenda that the committee then sees and says, no, we don't want to do that, or we do, because we got to make sure we're not going around the Brown Act, I think is what really first comes to mind. But any other thoughts on Yin's pre-meeting? I'm not sure all these other committees can be meeting in advance, so that's a little bit surprising to me.
Maybe when we get to the work plan, we can
Yeah.
expand on this particular item that you'd like to discuss and maybe provide some direction that.
Okay. Yep.
So let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Carries unanimously. Great. Right, so we're done with that one. Very good. Thanks again for all the group efforts from the PUN group as well as city staff getting this out. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
You guys may want to stay. I don't know. We've got some reports that you've issued that are coming up later in our agenda. Jonathan, do we want to?
Do you mind if, put that?
Sure. Great idea. Let's do that. Let's move to. What is that item?
Item 5.
Item 5. Let's move to item 5, which is receiving the agreed upon procedures. Very important.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Need a motion in order to move.
Wow.
Or,
Okay.
thank you.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion to move item 5 so we can address it while the PUN group is right here, right now? Sheila so moved. Is there a second? Second. Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna move right to that motion. That agenda item is receiving the agreed upon procedures reports. And there's quite a few of them. There's 5 of them, and I had the pleasure of reading each of them, which is very interesting. Jonathan, do we have staff?
We're open to questions. In short, these were, I guess before we go to questions, these were conducted as part of last year's audit. Due to timing, they were just delayed in today's meeting. In short, the gal limit came back without any issues. Investment report did have a couple findings. We can discuss that shortly here. The single audit, again, also had a couple findings, one of which was included in last year's ACPR, and the storm drain AUPs came back clean or without any finding. The investment AUP, most of this was the findings are related to what report the city uses to create its quarterly investment report, which is Chandler's, which is Chandler's investment asset investors who again, we use their reports to generate our quarterly treasurer's report, whereas the AUP states that we would use the custodial accounts reports or statements. There is differences in how both report out their market values. And we did notice that there were some issues with the statement from the custodial account. And so what we will be in the future returning is asking to change the so that the two tie out and we won't have these repetitive findings. And with the single audit, there were a finding of related to segregation of duties, of which we did correct in the 23-24 reporting in April. So which the auditors did have an opportunity to review and observe the change, and they did note that in the report, I believe. They are available if they want, if you have any further questions with regards to that, and available for any other questions. Yes.
Clarifying questions from the committee members? I can throw one out, I guess, going back to your comment on the investment policy. I think there was between the custodian and Chandler, there were differences in valuation methods, and there's probably 10 other groups where you could do a different valuation. The city could have its own. So I guess from the PUN group perspective, how can we, I guess you probably have some suggestions on how to modify the AUP procedures for the next time that, so we can make these reports even more valuable. Is that correct, Sophia?
Yes, so like Jonathan mentioned, this really happens from time to time that I think this every year. So the trustee custodians, they have different values compared to like Chandler or the other asset management company. Sometimes it's because of the timing of the reports when they generate it. Some of the companies they generate just right on 30th. Some of them like one day off, one day earlier or 2 days earlier. So this also creates differences. And then the pricing methodology is really different from firm to firm. Even like CPA firms, some CPA firms, they have internal valuation group. They will use different methodologies as well. So this does happen really often. So I personally would suggest the city's management consider changing or modify the procedures to in line with which statement they are using. And then the procedure could be something like tracing from management documentation to the statement they are using to make sure the data that they pull is correct, and then someone actually review and monitor from that point. Because again, really different professional firms, they have different ways of doing the valuation unless they are publicly traded securities. So that's why we have GASB 72 different level of inputs. So it really happens that there are some discrepancies, but usually they are not material. However, this is an agreed upon procedure, so there is no gray area. So only yes and no. So whether they agree or they don't agree. So the findings, I know some people don't like the wording of finding. However, this is really great, agree upon procedure. So it's only yes and no. If you agree, then agree. If you don't agree, then it's a finding. So I would think the procedures could be modified to become like we trace from the management documentation to the statements that the management using to put the quarterly investment report together. So I think this will avoid the repetitive finding from year to year, because I even look at prior auditors' agree upon procedure reports, seems like pretty common. I think it's the procedures might have some rooms to be updated.
Yeah, so maybe to close that loop then, in a future audit committee, there could be a staff report telling us, or you present, maybe when we were reviewing interim procedures next year, we can have a better understanding of what you're proposing, and that certainly makes sense to me. What
Sure.
you just, thanks. Any other questions? I've got one on the, unfortunately, I got a lot of questions on this, but I just want to confirm, I guess, the on the single audit report, the material weaknesses in there, as I understand it, that you made a series of recommendations and the city's accepted those and has made changes. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, so I think last meeting, I also provide some updates on prior year finding, how we address prior year finding as well. So the first one is on the prior period adjustment, which we didn't have this year, so it's properly addressed. And then within the same finding, the other one is delay in the financial assurance, which we caught up, and then we will be issuing tomorrow. So I think all this were properly addressed. And the other one that Jonathan mentioned is the reporting related to ARPA, which was also addressed in 23-24 filing in April, happened in April this year.
Great.
Which one was that?
ARPA's sorry,
What she just done?
this is for the single audit, so federal funds that the city needs to report out.
For the,
So typically that's done in April of each year, the reporting part of it. And so any year that you exceed $750,000 in federally expense, not necessarily what you receive, but if you expended those funds, you need to report that out. And those funds need to be audited. And so that's what the Pine Group conducted last year.
the pandemic?
The ARPA funds, correct, yes.
Okay, well, this one doesn't require a motion, so we are just going to receive and push forward unless either of you have any objections to that. We'll, as chair, I hereby do what the recommended action is.
Public comment.
Oh, did we forget that? I'm sorry. My apologies. Is there any public comments?
That's number 5, right?
We're on number 5, right? We jumped. You're good with that? Okay, good. So then I'll accept these as chair and we'll move back into order on our agenda. And thanks again to the Pun Group for being available for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. All right, item 3 is where we're at in our agenda. And this one is another action item. So we're going to take a motion on this one, and it's to review and accept the citywide policy inventory and gap analysis report, which there is a staff report. So Jonathan, why don't you track us through what the staff reports on that you think? We are close, by the way, to a time pressure. I apologize to everyone. I've been told that we may be evicted from here by 5:30, so we're going to talk faster if we can. But hi, Chelsea, welcome.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna try to take the intro to this because we're
Okay.
coming back to you with work that we need to complete. So the item is coming back to audit committee. I know, I think you saw it on Halloween evening, if memory serves correctly.
That's
So this is an item, that's a council work program item. It's a 2-part item, but Moss Adams is only handling the administrative policies portion. The second portion is related to city council policies, which is being done. That work is being done by staff, not by Moss Adams. So as we were getting further along in reviewing our council policies, we got to a point where we could compare and contrast. And what we found is there were 4 policies that should have been on the council policy side, but were listed as administrative policies. So in order for that report to continue forward, we need to come back to this committee so that you know the report has been updated, we provide you with an updated report and the reason for why that report has been updated. That's why this item is back before you again, Steve.
very good. I understand. Any clarifying questions from the committee members?
We reviewed this, right?
Yes,
Last time.
last meeting, actually.
So there's no change.
There are changes other than the 4 policy meetings.
So it's an opportunity.
Was there a follow-up on I remember there was a color red. Well, did we take an action to kind of change how that was categorized, or?
No, that one remained there. That wasn't one of the 4 that was struck.
But I think Hanya is referring to this great opportunity now that Chelsea's here. We didn't actually have a representative of Moss Adams to explain the red color that a number of us immediately were drawn to on the, and it's still in the revised report. You want maybe Chelsea, if you can, just summarize what red means and the implications.
Yeah, so thank you so much. So really this is just highlighting an area that we would say is inherently high risk within the city, probably because there's no policies at hand. So that is, what we're really trying to highlight here. So that means, no policies were in hand. So we're encouraging the city within the next 6 months to a year to start getting those policies drafted and documented.
Okay, thank you for that. Does that help? I forgot, I do remember we had a question on why it was there, so that's a
Right.
nice crisp answer. It's just because there's no policy. Okay. I'm surprised there aren't more areas that are high risk then. So there are policies pretty much everywhere except there.
Yeah.
That's a positive way to look, maybe.
Absolutely.
Decide. I guess now that we have you here, I did have, and since I reviewed the minutes again, the comment last time was, we understand the county sheriff is the contracted provider for public safety, but they must be, other cities must contract that you probably are internal auditors for, who have similar situations. To me, it seemed like a simple thing for maybe to call up the county folks and say, well, do you have an internal audit department, and to have they reviewed anything that we could obtain as a report, since public safety is a major part of the city, even though it's not done in-house. It seems like doing this kind of gap analysis is a decent thing that probably everyone does, as a best practice. What have you encountered other cities having this kind of issue and they actually have been successful, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends from city to city. We have other clients, other big cities that we have done similar policy gap analysis for, and we have been able to obtain those policies from the sheriff's department. I will say that sheriff's departments, that is an inherently that area they usually are very private with, and especially if they're using the county policies and procedures. My only encouragement for the city in that area is they should have some processes, citywide processes, that complement the county as well. So you wouldn't usually just, they should have some statement saying, we are fully using the county's policies and procedures, something like that. But we weren't going to push push it too hard. They are the county's policies and procedures, so we understood, and we can just, encourage them for best practices going forward, but nothing too inherently risky, that we thought we should note.
Great, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize that I wasn't able to attend, the October 31st meeting.
No problem, you're here now. Any other questions?
There's an opportunity for us to actually be the shining example in kind of leading.
There's always that opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay, public comments on this item? I don't see any, so we don't have any. So this one is also an action item that we decided we're gonna take a motion on. So let me invite a motion to accept this, and we just did that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I was off reading the. Sorry.
That's fine. Do I hear a motion? Is there a motion? You want to reverse the two of you, or?
What is that?
Yeah, you could say motion so moved.
Motion, so
Okay, I'll clarify in a second. Is there a second?
I will second it.
All right. We have a motion to review and accept the citywide policy inventory and gap analysis report that we just reviewed. Okay, any more deliberation on this point? I don't think so. Yes?
One last question.
Great.
So, the city is in agreement with all the suggestions and so there's no disagreement.
Fantastic. All right, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Very good. Well, thanks, Chelsea, for coming, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks,
Unless
everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Take care. Thank you. Okay, item number 4 is an informational item, budget format review update. So this one, we're not gonna take a motion on, but we are going to hear from Christina.
Yes, we have submitted our application for GFOA for the budget award, so we don't have those comments back. We'll expect those likely at the first half of the or the second half of the fiscal year here, January, February. But the plan currently is we are looking at a couple of changes to our budget document. So currently, we're exploring the option with the department of updating the performance measures that are included in the budget document, make sure they're aligning with council strategic priorities and that they make sense for the department as well. We developed those, I want to say 8 or 9 years back. They do look at the departments do look at performance measures every year, but we thought it'd be a good time to take a holistic approach, making sure everything ties in together the way it should. The other item that we're looking at is looking to see if there's any way to what I'll call is right size the document. So one of the feedbacks that we get about our budget document is a very thick, heavy document, a lot of good information. That's the feedback we get as well. And so we're looking at ways that we might be able to trim the document down with ensuring that we're keeping all of the pieces that are necessary per our California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, CSMFO, and the Government Financing Officers Association, which is the federal branch for finance officers in government. So making sure they still meet their criteria, but trying to find a way to make the document smaller, a little more readable, to kind of the average person who just decides they want to pick up a city budget document and read it. And so that's what we have in terms of some things on the horizon, but we'll bring the item back likely at the January meeting if we have the comments there. And then we'll have some recommendations for some changes we're looking to make and looking to get the committee's feedback at that time.
Questions?
Yes, I did have a question. Some years ago, you'd have a little sort of like a budget at a glance.
Yes.
Right, and you stopped it.
So this year, we didn't produce it just because we were down a position, so we were a little later in the game in terms of when we normally publish that, like in July at the latest by August. We were a bit delayed as being down one person trying to complete the final budget. We're waiting for a couple of outstanding pieces from other departments as well. So with that, we have a document, we just haven't printed it this year. It actually was about to print about the same time as we were going with, I think, the unassigning the funds for CDTFA. We were worried we might confuse folks putting that this item had something to do with that, and it was really just a timing issue.
This year, or next year.
Yeah, so that plan is to publish it next year.
That was really useful. In fact, I wasn't on council, but I remember taking that document and showing it to a lot of people.
No, I agree. That's one of my favorite budget documents. It's got a lot of information in a small package, so.
I will say, I mean, in the budget, there is a section called the city managers,
Yeah, the budget message.
But yeah, it essentially has most of the information. And Christina was being humble, not saying it. And Chair, I stepped out where you're commenting on the ACFR. Really, the truly reasons she's down a staff. And then we really want to bring the ACFR to you in time so that we're not being criticized again for being late. So that was kind of an executive decision that Christina and I made. Of all the things, it's really, it's a nice to have, but it's a repeat. So we decided to focus Jonathan's time on the ACFR instead. So, but I think what you're instead of the budget outline summary thing, yeah. Ever since Thomas left us, we really don't have a Thomas Leon.
I know.
Jonas left us.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't seen him in a long time.
Elected a year or before the budget is done. Yeah. We're down a Thomas Leon, so that's why.
We're all very sorry about it.
Yeah, but
But
But he did move on to bigger, not better.
I would say better.
yeah, I just say.
It's up a neighboring city, how could it be better, right?
That's why I said.
It's gotta be
I don't
worse.
think it's even bigger.
He's a director, he's a corporate.
Where city is this?
Los Altos Hills.
It's not bigger than us.
Title wise.
I do.
Title wise.
Wait,
But that makes sense to have this financial report out.
And our goal is to produce it again next year. a little more time to pivot
Makes sense.
last year.
I'm curious, so I think you mentioned two things. One is, hey, how do we align the budget format to like the priority of the council? And then the second thing is to make it more simple. And then there's all the, obviously all the guidelines that you have to follow, like federally and state and whatnot. Like, I'm just curious, what is the extent of the city using artificial intelligence to kind of help you kind of, do some first cut or kind of, it's like, hey, here's the contacts I want to do. I want to, here what we're trying to accomplish. And it's like the context window has, here are the council's priorities, and here's the goal, just,
I think what we, we're currently exploring different options with AI, just piloting items, different items here and there in certain staff citywide. Actually, Thomas was the one who tapped on our team to work with the AI, just because of his technical expertise. But that's something I was gonna inquire with, our chief technology officer about a different use for AI, but we can inquire about that too. I know, we were just on was it GFOA or CSMFO had a call about how you could use AI, and all of our interests were piqued in finance. Looked like there were a lot of things we could likely use it for. So we are gonna look into that, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Let you know.
and I wonder, like, there's so many, local big companies that, is there something we can kind of leverage their expertise to kind of help their community to kind of do things more efficiently using technology?
Or help our committee be more efficient
Yeah,
as well.
or that, yeah.
I suspect there's an appetite on this committee to set up subcommittees or something that might look into it if city staff thinks that's relevant at some point. Maybe it's something to address on our 2025 work plan. Just to jump, maybe we can pick that up in a minute here. I've got a question about the performance measures. Can you just give a simple example of what might be an example of a performance measure? Is it all money related? Is that how it works in the city?
So this was to be broader goals, trying to
I looked at the budget book and it's a response time and.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's not all finance.
So,
related.
yeah, okay, that's, the
It's-
mayor's
it's-
already given me the kind of left.
get.
That makes perfect sense. And trimming down the budget, though, I hate to say, one time when you said this many years ago, it's probably not this way now, but you had like 1,000-page document. And I remember you were trimming back in those days. Has it built itself up again to, if anybody printed this thing, which nobody
We
does.
print limited copies now. That's one of our productions. So only the certain folks that ask for it, will get it. I'm one of those people. I just like to have it near my desk and reference it, often. So I'm sorry, and I got off. Tell me the question.
How many pages would it be if you had to print the last one?
It's about this big.
Yeah, I want
About
to
a
say
thousand.
Copy in my office,
like six.
double sided.
1,000 pages.
Yeah,
That-
about this big, double sided.
Hold on, I have the table of contents up right now, about
And that's not-
649 pages.
Okay, well, it's better than 1,000 pages.
Better than
That's still
1,000.
a huge number that,
Yeah, I think we're trying to see if there's also ways to leverage OpenGov so we
Yeah.
don't lose the detail that we have in
Right.
our budget documents. We don't
Right.
want to do that. We want to have less detail if that information
Yeah.
isn't readily available somewhere else. So that's one of the options that we're looking at to see if we're able to consolidate some areas. How do we keep the detail that we know folks are going to want to look at?
again, I'm not sure we can address it today, but it could be a subcommittee thing. I know that's worked well in the past. It's tough in a 2-hour meeting like this where we've got a lot of other business to come up with anything valuable, but a subcommittee can maybe come up with that. Although January, we're excited to hear what you want to present. I think I already asked.
One.
Yeah, please.
I know in Santa Clara County, there's a big difference between the recommended budget and the final budget. Final budget is really it's quite a abbreviated version of the bigger doc.
And
And
so-
ours is pretty small.
So no, so in the counties, they actually have, sorry, and I know this because I used to work for, for a county, that's where I cut my teeth doing budget. So the proposed budget normally comes in May, and it's the full document. Then what happens as the year end closes and you get final balances, then they come back usually in September with, hey, we have more information and here's the adjustments that we want to make. So it's similar to our proposed and our final, with our final usually just having most of the time minor changes from what was proposed. They just let the county kind of close their books before they come back. I think most counties follow that cycle. So similar in terms of what we're doing, different in terms of the time frame. So cities normally look to have an adopted budget by June 30th. So we have a spending plan. Otherwise, we go into the new year without a spending plan. I have no authority to spend and I can't actually issue checks.
Thank you for that. Are any public comments on this agenda item?
This is for the budget.
This is item number 4.
Yeah, so you're talking about reports that come in. I don't know whether this goes under budget or somewhere else, but I remember in the past, reports coming in saying, this is how many employees we have, this is how many who've left. Data. I haven't seen that data come by. In this. Is that?
Am I okay to answer that question?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
please.
So I think to make sure I understand it's correctly, in the budget document at the beginning of each department, there's performance measures and there's workload indicators. So the workload indicators are kind of the widget counting. How many AP checks did we do, right? Items, but both are currently included in the document. We'd be looking at updating the performance measures, which I'm trying to get to one relatively quickly here.
That was one of the performance measures. It would actually come as a specific report into this body.
So it's always so the 2 times performance measures come out. One is with the proposed budget document, and then mid-year, there's usually an update. That may be the one that you're thinking of. So those are the same ones, and then we just update where we are as of the halfway point of the year.
Mid-year is when,
Either the second meeting in February or the first meeting in March.
I don't remember getting that data this past February.
It should have been there. There's several different, I think we're down to like attachment M in our quarterly.
Okay.
So,
And look at city council or look at audit committee.
City
Sorry.
council for that one, it sounds like.
City council.
Mid-year.
Maybe.
On it.
And that one did go the second meeting in February last year. So not the first meeting.
Yeah, just for clarification, our particular area of focus is the budget format review, which is broad enough to keep us busy, but we definitely don't touch a lot of other areas the budget covers. Thanks for the public comments, by the way. Forgot to thank you there. I think we're now done with that item. Thanks, Christina. And we've done item 5 already, so we're down to the work plans. And Jonathan, you included a couple on here this year, which is almost over, and next year.
Just a brief moment.
Yep. It'll be easier to do it on the screen.
Just jump right into 2025.
Yeah. We're done with 2024 in a few more minutes here. I did print that.
We did struggle a little bit, as we were putting the January, together, because, if you can see the last few items were presentations from our, outside, consultants, including PARS, Camera Investment, and the Pine Group and Moss Adams. And so, those presentations will likely have to be included in the following meeting, once there is likely a new, makeup of this audit committee after, that has gone through, but we wanted to continue at least discussing your quarterly reports, because those have a 45-day deadline. I prefer that to bring it to your attention, you guys review, have your questions before sending it off to the council within that 45-day window, and then continue the internal audit and fraud and waste use program update. And the other ones are largely just presentations and kind of a reminder for the audit committee. And then we move on to the April meeting.
Maybe we could stick with January just for a minute. Maybe that's easier to
Okay, certainly.
overlap, but one comment that came up from reading the minutes again and comments over time is on the US Bank report. It's great they have the industry information, but we only have like 20 minutes. We want to do all these other, if you look at the column, it's a whole lot more. These quarterly meetings it's tough to get all these required reports done. everybody's got to say something. If there's five of us, we all have to say something a little more. So I just would like to confirm maybe that maybe US Bank can do that only once. And even then they can shave it down in coordination with you guys on staff, because we get the written report. So maybe to make US Bank go more efficiently, we could have them focus on performance versus the index. Go right to page 8 or 9 or whatever the equivalent is. It's just, otherwise we just can't get everything done. And the same way with Chandler, I think, Carlos is very flexible, but we don't probably need to hear it's all in that report. It's a great report. We all should read it before. So again, maybe we can have Carlos focus on what was the performance and then whatever other item they want to focus or highlight to the committee.
Certainly.
I don't know what the committee's
So,
view is on this idea.
So my thinking was on that too as well, US as well as Chandler. Not focus his presentation, not so much on what's happening outside and the globals and all that, but let's just focus on how our city is doing. In comparison to the benchmarks that he's
Certainly.
laid out. So he spends a lot of time sort of explaining what's happening in the world. And I'm not sure that's useful.
And a lot of it's in his report that's written. So if we have a
Yes,
question, we can bring it up when we're chatting with him.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think last time we gave US Bank some specific feedback to kind of change, like the benchmark is not the right benchmark and so forth. I think those are more, it's a better use of time for our committee, kind of, hey, do this so that next time, like, when you come back to us, this is more meaningful. It's a better measurement.
So then the PARS presentation, what's that again? Is that different than the US Bank or that is US Bank? Okay, got it. And Chandler, we know what that is. So receive the PUN group presentation. What?
So for that first month, the first item, which is appointing committee chair and vice chair, and then the last 5 items are more specific for any new incoming members. Just kind of getting them acquainted with their roles and responsibilities and who our industry experts are. And so that's all it really was intended. I think this wasn't quite there in years past. It was just more of an introduction that we wanted to have for this last year, because we did have quite a bit of change in our body. So we had 2 new committee members, or actually technically 3, including Councilmember Way. And so that everybody would be brought on board, there'd be less of this turnaround questions. We can have this introduction, right? And so they knew what each expert, what they were responsible with. And so we had less of this less confusion as to what the role was within the committee members as themselves and what each responsibilities of those sections were.
Well, just spitballing again. Can we say that? We're still being broadcast recorded, but that's fine. That's an accepted word here. Spitballing on ideas. Sometimes you could have one-on-ones with the new committee.
Right,
members.
that's what.
That wouldn't violate Brown Act, right? Or that'd be okay, right?
For the new members, if the PUN group and Moss Adams has a separate.
That's very true. We can explore that idea of this next go around.
Yeah.
So if there's a group of 2, let's say there's 2 members,
Right.
onboard them with the meeting separate, so we don't take up the committee time.
I would suggest that's a great use of staff time. But what do you think?
Yeah.
You came on new this year, you got some of the new description, but you probably picked it up while we were chatting.
I think that having a separate, almost like orientation would definitely help. It's kind of.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll remove the presentations and the roles and responsibility from the chart, from the work plan, and then we'll
Everything
have
below
those
that.
one-on-ones.
Yeah. Great. Now we can move to the next column map. We'll give you plenty of time to take notes because this is important.
So the first 4 are standard quarterly items, again, minutes, the Audit, investment reports, and then the fraud, waste, and abuse program updates. New to this quarter would be our investment policy. Again, we do this every year around April, and it goes to council for their approval shortly thereafter. And then, we get an update on our internal audit program, or we propose that program. And then we can make those changes. That's, and then lastly, we'll return with the fiscal year 23-24 AUPs. If there's a single audit, will be presented similar to today. But I think we're going forward, we'll start separating the two because the deadlines are a bit different between the APR and with these AUPs.
But maybe jumping on that second call, we'll go back to budget format, which again, staff is doing many other things, so I'm just spitballing once again. But budget format review is in October as opposed to earlier in the year, which is fine, because maybe we have time. But I think also realistic, if we're actually proposing anything, like to be responsive to your question, I just stress, even though I don't know how we could do it in an audit committee meeting. So is there a subcommittee format that maybe this, I don't know if there's an appetite. I'm really looking over at you because you've got some budgeting background. From would you be willing to join a subcommittee, which it can't consist of more than two of us?
Yeah,
But so maybe again, we don't have to put it on here, or maybe we should as an idea, but maybe if you have it's been a few years since when was the last subcommittee that worked with you guys? Was it me and Darcy probably?
No, I think council member Moore,
So I'll look at
someone
that.
else were on a subcommittee at
So
one
it's a
point.
few years.
I think there was one to select the new auditor.
That was probably different though than what the budget,
And I'm just sorry, I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
Speak.
but Rhoda probably has more institutional knowledge than I do sometimes. So, but as an idea, maybe for the item that's in October 27th, and then maybe what we can do is revisit it in 2025. There was something else you were talking about that we could, the AI thing. So maybe we could combine the AI with budget, although they're two different areas conceptually, but I mean, I'm looking at AI, how could it help this committee? And then there's also the AI, how can it help make everything more efficient? So there's all kinds of areas.
it's transcribed, like is meeting recorded and transcribed.
Yes.
Then I think in theory, we can run a summary at the end of the transcription of the meeting, right?
I've heard that that's successful in many other instances. Have you had luck with that kind of use of AI?
Yeah, we don't use Zoom, we use Team. Yeah.
Yeah, but same idea, you should be able to run it through. So I'd be happy to have the minutes
Yeah,
transcribed that way. I don't know, it's all on YouTube. So you just run YouTube through the AI engine? Is that how it works? Well,
We can certainly explore it. I think it's a little more difficult in this environment because you don't have anything telling who's talking, and I'm not sure if AI would be able to distinguish.
I think that the new team, they were actually able to, you might have to join the meeting with your own like laptop and actually recognize.
I think that's something we know our IT department is something they're exploring, looking at policy related to it, so.
Yeah.
We can definitely, we might be able to, they might hop on a pilot that they already have, and say, yeah, here, let's go give it a shot.
well, I guess what I'm saying is I've got an appetite to help with the subcommittee if there's somebody besides me that in 2025 of our constituted committee. So maybe that, this is also building an agenda in a sense. So does that maybe respond to your, maybe we can why don't you guys as staff consider whether there's a place to consider in the next full committee meetings, whether we can have a subcommittee that addresses AI and more detailed budget liaison with city staff. Okay, so anything else on April? We gotta hurry now. July, October, combine those together.
Yeah, so July is again, you said there's really nothing new there, on to October. We'll revisit those, OPEB and pension investment policies. I will provide you with an update to the AGFR, how we're moving along with that. And the budget format, whether it's, performed in October or in November/December, if time permitting.
Yep. Great. I have no other changes other than to observe that there's a lot of other things that go on. There's like mayor's meetings, there's like there's other meetings that it seems like I had to attend.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, presentations
Patient,
to city council. And, I guess that's the chair's responsibility always, whoever the chair is gets to do those things, or try to delegate.
Or designate.
Yeah, okay, so no, that doesn't go on here, that's good. All right. Hey, are we good?
Public comments.
Oh, we have public comment on this, great. Rhoda, what do you got?
Yeah, thanks, so just as procedurally, and maybe you want to talk about procedures here, if somebody's not gonna make it to the meeting, I think it'd be nice to have the alternate. I'm guessing there's an alternate city council member.
I don't think so. What, we have 5 members, there are no alternates.
Missing, and it'd be nice to, assign alternates potentially. So one of the things I would like to see is an opportunity for this body to suggest more, agenda items. One of the things that, of interest to me, I hope it's to this group as well, is to, do a little bit of a drill down to see how our mitigation fees are being used, as particularly with the low market rate affordable housing fund, which had some misallocations that I found back in February, and I think would be useful to really get an in-depth understanding about how we use these funds, and so we're making sure that they're being properly moved forward. I had brought it up to the housing. If that was not within their purview, so if it's not in their purview, maybe it is the purview of this body.
The purview's been cut off on the bottom, so if you push the screen up a little bit,
Can we screen?
Yeah, these are the powers and responsibilities.
7 or 8 items that,
This committee reviews annual audit report. Recommend appointment of auditors, review the quarterly returns, investment report. Recommend a budget format, review city's investment policies and internal controls of such policy. Recommend appointment of internal auditors. Review internal auditors, review quarterly problems and issues programs.
And I would recommend to add something else, to add another line that,
Well, that's a
You know.
municipal code.
This
Is within the municipal code.
right, well then,
Well,
Maybe-
Would have to take that.
to take it back up to the city council or take it up through the municipal code and say, there's a lot of smart people who go to this meeting, and that there could be, value brought back to the city council, especially given our budgetary issues. That we should make sure that we do the best that we can for the city. So that would be my recommendation.
okay, thank you for those public comments. I think we are now adjourned, or about to adjourn. Anything else? We have reports sometimes. Anything else anybody wants to add? I don't. Future agenda setting. We already did that through our work plan discussion. Staff and committee reports. Now we're adjourned. All right, thanks, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
All